Willow Lu, the young lady of the Lu family, and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Our two families had even arranged a child betrothal, agreeing that we would marry once we came of age. But who would have expected that at the engagement banquet, the Lu family's nanny suddenly snatched the bride price list, shoved a frail-looking girl in front of us, and burst into a wild laugh. My daughter is marrying the young master of the Wang family. All these betrothal gifts belong to me. Didn't see that coming, did you? The two children were switched back then. Why should your daughter live like a pampered young lady, while my daughter is doomed to suffer her whole life? This is the real daughter of the Lu family. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, but I calmly looked at her and said, I didn't expect it, but I saw it coming. That's why I switched them back. Madam, the one you brought with you is your biological daughter. Chapter 1. George, we're going to the hospital to visit your Aunt Lu and little Willow. Hurry up and change your shoes. Little me stared longingly at the pudding on my plate, practically drooling, and asked, Mom, can I finish my pudding before we go out? Every week, I was only allowed one serving of pudding, and it was always on Sunday. My mom didn't have the patience to wait. She grabbed me by the collar and hauled me toward the door in one swift motion. No. Your Aunt Lu is alone in the hospital. What if that jerk shows up and upsets her? Now, immediately, this second, come with me. I let out an oh, slowly changed my shoes, climbed into the child's safety seat in the car, and felt full of curiosity about the Willow sis I had never met before. Mom, what is child betrothal? My mom shot me a glance and ignored me, so I turned to my dad. Dad, what is child betrothal? My dad was driving. He answered without hesitation, I don't know. I behaved myself after that. I pressed against the car window and looked outside, not noticing the quiet sigh of relief my parents let out. As soon as we entered Aunt Lu's hospital room, my mom hurried straight to the crib. I followed right behind her. Inside was a very, very tiny baby, sleeping with her eyes closed. She was so pale and soft, prettier than my pudding. I wanted her to open her eyes and look at me, so I deliberately breathed louder, pretending it took no effort at all. She didn't open her eyes. Dragging my heavy steps, I followed my parents and greeted Aunt Lu. Hello, Aunt Lu. While my parents were talking with Aunt Lu, I sneaked back to the crib. I carefully wiped my hands and gently poked her cheek, softer than pudding. Standing on my tiptoes, I cautiously placed a piece of chocolate beside her hand. I didn't know why, but the chocolate melted. Brown stains spread across her pink little outfit. I tried to wipe it off, but the harder I rubbed, the worse it got. Even the small blanket was smeared with chocolate. Like a thief, I quickly pulled my hand back and looked around, afraid someone had noticed. I was done for. My parents and Aunt Lu hadn't noticed me at all. I stayed there, nervously leaning against the crib, until my parents called me to go home. Even then, I was still anxious, terrified they would discover I'd done something bad. Aunt Lu deliberately asked me, George likes her that much. Do you want to live at Aunt Lu's place in the future? My home and Aunt Lu's home were neighbors. I nodded and said, I'll live at Aunt Lu's place in the future. Living at Aunt Lu's place, washing clothes for Willow. If you make a mistake, you have to find a way to make up for it. My mom shot me an annoyed look. George, why don't you just stay at the hospital tonight and keep Aunt Lu company? I thought about it and looked at my mom seriously. Then can I go home, eat my pudding, and come back? My mom laughed in exasperation. No. You being here is already causing Aunt Lu trouble. But after they get home, you can help take care of the baby. Reluctant and guilty, I took one last look at the sleeping baby in the crib. All right then, I'll come see Willow tomorrow. When I got home, I'd find my clothes and give them to her as compensation. Before leaving the hospital room, I saw Aunt Lu had already closed her eyes, as if she were asleep. At the corner of the hallway, my mom looked at me suspiciously. Why are you being so well behaved today? Did you get into trouble? Her voice rose. School starts tomorrow, didn't you finish your homework? Guilty. I stiffened my neck and shouted back. I finished it. Mom, I forgot something in Aunt Lu's room. I need to go back and get it. If you make a mistake, you have to admit it. I needed to go back and apologize to Aunt Lu. My mom was staring in one direction when she suddenly spoke. Diego, I saw Helen's ex-husband. Come with me and see what he's up to. George, stay by Aunt Lu's side and behave. Your dad and I will come pick you up later. Just sit quietly. Don't disturb Aunt Lu while she's sleeping. She wanted to see what that jerk was doing at the hospital. Before I could finish speaking, my mom had already dragged my dad away in a rush. I had no choice but to head back on my own, only to see a woman holding a child come out of Aunt Lu's room. Chapter 2. I remembered it very clearly. There had only been Aunt Lu and little Willow in the hospital room. I widened my eyes and didn't dare blink, watching as that woman carried a child into the next room and then came back out. Oh no. Willow had been stolen. There was a thief. I rushed back into the room, only to see a baby lying in the crib. I couldn't tell babies apart by their faces, but I recognized the pink little outfit I had stained. Aunt Lou was still asleep. I tugged hard at the baby's clothes. Nothing. Only the pink blanket still had a smear of chocolate sauce on it. The pink outfit itself was completely clean. I was so angry I felt like I was about to explode. Whose kid was this? I didn't want to trade for them. I glanced at the sleeping Aunt Lou, then remembered my mom's warning. Pacing anxiously in place, I clenched my teeth and made a decision. I was going to switch Willow back. No hesitation, I copied the way my mom held a baby, climbed onto the sofa, and picked up the baby whose family I didn't even know. Stumbling, I ran out. I crashed open the door to the next hospital room and headed straight for the crib. Sure enough, inside was the pink outfit stained with chocolate sauce. She was lying wrapped in a blue blanket. I hurriedly swapped the two babies, wrapped the real Willow in the chocolate-stained blanket, and rushed back. After scrambling all the way, I finally put her back where she belonged. I was drenched in sweat, holding onto the crib and panting, and even then, she still didn't open her eyes to look at me. I muttered softly, "If I hadn't switched you back, you'd have grown up in someone else's family." I didn't like staying in other people's homes, and I didn't want Willow to stay in someone else's home either. I stared at her wrinkled, dirty clothes, feeling worried. "George, why are you back again?" I heard Aunt Lou's gentle voice and looked at her pitifully. "I'm sorry, Aunt Lou. I got Willow's clothes dirty. I wanted to give her chocolate, but it melted and stained her clothes and her blanket. I'm sorry." I pointed at the brown stain, but a tiny hand gently curled around my finger. I thought Aunt Lou would grab my ear like my mom always did, but instead she just chuckled softly. "It's okay. Willow really likes George." I rushed up to Aunt Lou. "Really? It's really okay. I can wash Willow's clothes clean." Aunt Lou rubbed my head. "It's really okay. The nanny will wash Willow's clothes." The nanny. That's right, the nanny. The person who tried to switch Willow must have been Aunt Lou's nanny. I was just about to tell Aunt Lou that her nanny was a bad person when my mom barged in aggressively, muttering, "That bastard Martin, sneaking around like a creep. I don't know what he was up to." I yelled at him, and he didn't even argue back, like he was waiting for someone. Then he saw someone and started laughing like a lunatic. Just thinking about Helen Lou's ex-husband filled my mom with anger. Helen Lou looked at her furious friend and said calmly, "Why get angry over him? He left the marriage with nothing. There's no need to waste your anger on someone like that." She got out of bed and teased the baby in the crib while speaking. "From now on, all my assets belong to Willow." When they divorced, the property had been difficult to divide, so they decided to transfer everything into the child's name. They would give it to her once she became an adult. I tilted my head, not understanding what the adults were talking about. I just stared in amazement at the baby who suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were prettier than my glass marbles. That nanny must have thought Willow was really pretty and wanted to swap her with Aunt Lou's baby. Heh, good thing I secretly switched her back. Chapter 3. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. I often went next door to Aunt Lou's house to help take care of Willow. That day was Willow's 10th birthday party. We celebrated for her at a hotel in the city center. 10-year-old Willow was wearing a white princess dress. Her delicate braided hair was topped with a small diamond crown, making her look like a princess straight out of a fairy tale. Willow and I were sitting in the dressing room waiting for the adults when the first person to arrive was her family's nanny. I watched the nanny, who frequently beat her own child, with clear vigilance. "Ms. Lin, what are you here for?" I had once seen Ms. Lin secretly hitting her daughter in the kitchen. After I told the adults, she claimed she was disciplining her own child and, right in front of the 5 of us, hit her daughter even harder. After that, I pretended not to see it anymore. After all, as she said, she was beating her own child. Ms. Lin put on a flattering smile and said to me, "Young Master George, I brought a birthday gift for the young lady." She took out an exquisite gift box, opened it, and handed it to Willow, who was sitting beside me. "Willow, this is a 10th birthday gift I prepared for you. See if you like it." Inside the box was a music box, with a ballerina figurine spinning in the center. It was beautiful and harmless. I finally let out a breath and relaxed back into my chair. Willow accepted it happily. "Thank you, Ms. Lin. I really like this gift." The accident came without warning. Smack. No one expected Maria, standing behind Ms. Lin, to suddenly knock the gift out of Willow's hands. Her eyes were red as she screamed sharply, "That's mine." "Mom, didn't you say you'd buy me a music box if I got first place? Why did it turn into Willow's birthday gift?" She looked around at the mountain of birthday presents piled behind Willow, and finally tears streamed down her face. "Today is my birthday too. Willow already has everything. Why does she have to take away the only gift I had?" "Mom, who is your real daughter?" "Exactly." The delicate music box rolled across the floor, but no one bent down to pick it up. I stood up and shielded Willow behind me. "Get out. Security. Escort them out. Ms. Lin, Our Willow cannot accept your gift. You'd better take it back to your daughter. Willow had been very well protected growing up. She tugged helplessly at my shirt sleeve. Brother George, she must have suffered a lot, right? Willow rarely encountered people who spoke so loudly. As her mother's business grew bigger and bigger, the smiles around Willow only multiplied. The people around her all spoke gently and softly to her. Someone would never speak to their own mother like that unless they had suffered a great deal. I paused slightly, then told her seriously, Willow, no matter how much injustice she has suffered, it has nothing to do with us. As I grew older, I gradually came to understand what had happened back then. Ms. Lin hadn't tried to switch the babies because Willow was pretty. She wanted her own daughter to replace Willow. I had once secretly arranged a DNA test for Willow Lu and Aunt Lu. I was absolutely certain that the Willow who grew up by our side was the real Willow. As for Ms. Lin, how she treated her own child was her own business. I never told my parents about what happened back then. As long as Willow was safe, a mere nanny couldn't cause any real trouble. Her malicious intentions would only end up hurting herself. Smack. Maria Lin, take a good look at yourself. Do you really think you're worthy of using something I bought? This is the fate you were born with. How could you ever compare to Willow? A loud slap landed on the frail girl beside her. Ms. Lin struck her hard. I frowned at the scene and said coldly, Ms. Lin, if you want to discipline your daughter, do it at home. Putting on a show like this in front of us made it look as if we were the ones bullying them. Ms. Lin, who had been domineering toward her own daughter just moments ago, immediately turned to us with a placating smile. I'm so sorry. So sorry, we've disturbed Willow's birthday party. Young Master George, we'll leave right away. She bent down with visible distress, picked up the music box that had fallen to the floor, and held it out to Willow with both hands, pleading, Willow, I picked this especially for you. Don't listen to Maria's nonsense. This was something she had especially picked out for her own biological daughter. It had cost her an entire month's salary. Maria, who had just been slapped hard, only stood there in silence, watching everything unfold. I felt a twinge of pity. Willow doesn't lack these things. Ms. Lin, take your daughter and leave. Willow wasn't at fault. Maria wasn't at fault either. The ones at fault were the adults hiding selfishness and malice in their hearts. Willow casually picked up a small cake from the pile and handed it to Maria. It's your birthday too. Here, you can have this. Her mother's friends had brought her many gifts and cakes. Maria's face flushed red. She looked into Willow's clear, untainted eyes and felt even worse than before. I don't want your cake. She wasn't a beggar. Smack. Another heavy slap landed on her back. Ms. Lin snatched the cake Willow had personally handed over. The smile on her face was brighter than the one she wore on payday each month. Thank you, Willow. Maria, how did I ever raise such an ungrateful little wretch like you? Hurry up and thank Willow. I reminded her calmly. Ms. Lin, no matter what, Maria is still your daughter. Ms. Lin waved it off indifferently. My daughter is here. My daughter is, yes. They were all Martin's daughters. Why should her daughter have to suffer? Her biological daughter was living as a young lady in the Lu family. I said nothing more and gestured for the security guards to escort them out. Willow's birthday party could not be ruined by them. Before leaving, I caught sight of Maria's gaze, filled with hatred, fixed squarely on me. The one who treated her badly was clearly her mother. So why did she hate me? Chapter 4. Before Willow's college entrance exam, I rushed back from overseas. That day, my mom grabbed my ear and lectured me earnestly. Willow has been coming home very late these past few days. Today, go follow her and see whether she's run into any kind of danger. I was distracted, thinking that it had been a long time since we'd seen each other, and wondering whether Willow would miss me. George, are you even listening to me? I rubbed my ear and nodded helplessly. I heard you. You want me to observe whether Willow has encountered school bullying. What else? Go on. I'll write it down. My mom's temper was just as explosive as ever. I shot my dad a look, signaling him to rein her in. But he pretended not to see it, just like he had done for years. As long as my mom wasn't at a disadvantage, my dad was nothing more than background scenery. I sighed. Mom, what exactly are you trying to say? My mom lowered her voice mysteriously. Willow is in adolescence now. Teenagers at that age tend to rebel. Your Aunt Lu and I don't dare ask directly. So you go find out whether Willow is in an early relationship. Even though you and Willow have been talked about as a child betrothal, your Aunt Lu and I are open-minded parents. If you two don't end up together, we won't force it. I laughed in disbelief. Mom, if you don't dare ask, why should I? Besides, when had I ever not liked Willow? My mom answered righteously. Because we want to be the most understanding parents in Willow's heart. We can't be the bad guys. What if Willow develops a rebellious mindset? Wouldn't that be counterproductive? The thought of Willow having an early romance made me inexplicably uncomfortable. Mom, with someone as outstanding as me around, How could Willow possibly look down on her classmates? Willow and I have a betrothal. I'm going upstairs to change clothes and pick Willow up after school. My mom watched her son's somewhat chaotic footsteps and said blankly to her husband, "Didn't he just change his clothes?" 15 minutes later, my mom stared in fascination at her son, now completely refreshed from head to toe, and sneezed from the strong scent of perfume. "George, are you planning to open a perfume lab? How many bottles did you spray on? Even the mosquitoes in the house are going to suffocate." I tugged at my tie awkwardly and retorted stubbornly, "I'm picking Willow up from school. I can't embarrass her. Of course I have to put some effort into my appearance." Afraid my mom would keep questioning me, I quickly grabbed the car keys and headed out. Willow and I are eating out tonight. I thought my mom and Aunt Lou were just worrying too much, but then I saw Willow walk out of the school gate and head in the opposite direction of home. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly put on my sunglasses and followed her. Chapter 5. Inside the cafe, I narrowed my eyes, sizing up the middle-aged man sitting across from Willow. That face, it looked exactly like Aunt Lou's ex-husband. "Willow, how did it go with your mom? Did she agree to meet me?" Martin stared at Willow eagerly, the hunger in his eyes impossible to hide. Back then, all the assets had been transferred to the unborn Willow. After that, his standard of living plummeted. It wasn't that he had never regretted it, Helen was simply ruthless and refused to see him. Willow looked at Martin expressionlessly. "My mom won't see you, and I won't acknowledge you either. If you come looking for me again, I'll have my mom's company lawyers sue you." This was already the third time this man had come to find her. She had family and friends in her life, she didn't need a stranger claiming to be her father to interfere. Listening in from the side, I nodded in quiet satisfaction. Martin slammed the table in anger. "Willow, do you think the life you have now just fell from the sky? Let me tell you, without me, you'd be nothing. No matter what." Willow was only 18. She flinched in fright but still shot back. "Everything I have was given to me by my mom. It has nothing to do with you." Ever since she could remember, her world had only consisted of her mom, Uncle Wong and Aunt Wong, and brother George. Martin laughed in fury. Fine. I'd like to see whether you'll still be this tough-mouthed after you graduate from college." Graduation was the date he and Helen had agreed upon. He glared viciously at Willow. "One day, you'll come crying and beg me. But even so, compared to Maria, Willow, also his daughter, was thousands of times better." I couldn't take it anymore. I took off my sunglasses and hurled them at Martin's head. "Who are you threatening? Do you think the Wong families and the Liu family's legal teams are just for show?" Thinking of a partnership we were currently negotiating, I added coldly, "Mr. Martin, the Orange Group will no longer consider cooperating with your company." While studying abroad, I had co-founded a company with my senior from the lab. From startup to public listing, it had cost me endless effort. That was why I hadn't returned home for nearly 2 years. Willow looked at me in delight. All fear vanished from her eyes. "George, I missed you so much." The last time she'd seen George was during the New Year, when they had gone abroad together to visit him. I placed myself in front of Willow, just like I had years ago, and looked at Martin with contempt. "Get lost. A piece of trash." I had always thought that back then, the nanny had tried to switch Willow with her own child purely out of selfish motives. Now it seemed there was more to it. Aunt Lou's ex-husband had likely been involved as well. Even a tiger doesn't eat its own cubs, he was nothing but a beast. I looked at Willow with concern and said gently, "Don't be afraid, let's go home." Willow nodded hard. I rushed Willow back home in a flurry. By coincidence, Aunt Lou was there. She looked at us in surprise. "George, didn't you say you and Willow were eating out today? Why are you back so early?" Normally, it was always others trying to please Willow. She never needed to complain to anyone. But I was different. I had mastered the art of turning the tables since childhood. "Aunt Lou," Martin went to harass Willow. "He said he wanted Willow to tell you that she wanted to live with her dad, and that he wanted Willow to force you to remarry him." Thinking about Martin and Maria's relationship, I tapped the table lightly, choosing my words carefully. Ever since Willow's 10th birthday party, every time he saw Maria, her face had been gloomy. She was innocent, but Willow was even more innocent. I had vaguely guessed Martin's and Ms. Lin's scheme, a baby-switching conspiracy, only it had been accidentally exposed by me. Thinking of this, I looked at Willow's innocent face, and a chill crept up my spine. If I hadn't spilled that chocolate on Willow back then, they would now be showering kindness on a complete imposter. Helen's expression changed abruptly. She grabbed her daughter and examined her from head to toe, her gaze as penetrating as an X-ray. "Willow, as long as you're safe, Mom will make sure justice is served for you." Being cared for by her mother, even though she hadn't actually suffered any real harm, Willow's eyes still reddened. "Mom," he said, "if I don't do what he tells me, you won't want me anymore. He also said you'd regret it." Helen was usually emotionally steady, but this time she was so angry that her whole body trembled. For the first time since the divorce, she dialed that number. Martin, are you even human? What kind of man threatens a child? If you've got the guts, come at me. If you dare interfere with Willow's college entrance exam, don't blame me for going down with you. There were only a few days left before Willow's exam. At such a critical moment, Martin coming to find Willow could only mean bad intentions. Even if her daughter failed the exam, Helen had the means to send her abroad, but she didn't want her daughter's hard work to go to waste. On the phone, Martin didn't even bother pretending anymore. Every word dripped with the smug arrogance of a petty villain. Helen, I want your daughter to miss her college entrance exam. I told you, you'll regret it. Helen shot back coldly. Martin, all you're good at is threatening a child. After all these years, you're still as pathetic and useless as ever. You will never get the chance to see my daughter. She hung up angrily. Willow, I'll stay home with you these next few days. Willow was an art student. Her dream was to become a free-spirited, passionate painter. I liked the brightness and vitality in Willow's paintings. They were full of life and infectious energy. Ms. Lynn, who had somehow come to eavesdrop, looked at Willow with what seemed like concern. Gritting her teeth, she said, Willow works so hard. How could she possibly skip the college entrance exam? She's not like Maria, lazy and slippery. Studying is useless for her anyway. Once she turns 18, I'll make her go work. If you don't study, what future do you have? Helen was so strong-willed. If she ever found out that her biological daughter hadn't even taken the exam, she'd only cherish her Willow even more. Her Willow was the truly outstanding one. What right did Maria have to enjoy all this? Listening to Ms. Lynn, I gave her a long, meaningful look and said, Ms. Lynn, sometimes I really can't tell which one is actually your daughter. You're so lenient with Willow, yet so harsh with Maria. No matter what, Maria is still your daughter. Let her finish college, she'll be able to find a decent job in the future. Degrees only devalue if you actually have one. If you have no education at all, what does devaluation even matter? Ms. Lynn didn't care, her words filled with disdain for her own daughter. I've raised her this big, that's already more than enough kindness. If it weren't for taking care of her biological daughter, she would have left Helen's side long ago instead of staying on as a nanny. If Maria were even half as outstanding and sensible as Willow, would I have sent her out to work so early? As if Helen's daughter could only ever be trampled under her daughter's feet. So what if Helen was rich? In the end, wouldn't it all belong to her anyway? She turned to see Maria returning home on her own after school, and her expression darkened instantly. Where did you run off to fool around? Willow's been home ages ago. What were you wandering around outside for? Maria, let me tell you, if you mess around out there, don't you dare call me your mother. This Maria was different from the last time I'd seen her. There was no longer any light of resistance in her eyes. She simply glanced at Ms. Lynn calmly. Are you done talking? Just a few more days. Once the college entrance exam was over, she could finally escape this place. Ms. Lynn was furious. Maria, what are you being arrogant about? What right do you have to be arrogant? You eat my food, wear my clothes, spend my money. You do whatever I tell you to do. Who do you think you're giving that attitude to? Ms. Lynn grabbed Maria by the ear, cursing nonstop as she dragged her back to the servants' quarters. I let out a sigh, unsure how to even judge it all. You reap what you sow. Chapter 6. During Willow's college entrance exam, the four of us kept strict watch, afraid that anything might go wrong. For the final English exam, we waited anxiously, and with nothing else to do, outside the exam hall. Suddenly, a frantic girl came running out, screaming. She tried to force her way into the exam hall, only to be restrained by two security guards working together. Please, let me go in. I wasn't late on purpose. My mom locked me at home. I ran all the way here. She had never imagined that her own mother would stop her during the very last exam. Clearly, going to college would have been her chance to escape that suffocating home. Seeing the girl drenched in sweat, the guards felt sympathy, but rules were rules. Sorry, student, these are the regulations. We can't let you in. Miss it. And she would have to wait another year. Maria collapsed at the entrance, sobbing uncontrollably. When Ms. Lynn rushed over, Maria screamed at her in breakdown. This is all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have missed the exam. With my grades, I could have gotten into a really good university. You just wanted to ruin my entire life. Her eyes were filled with hatred. I hate you. Ms. Lynn slapped her backhanded. How dare you? I raised you all these years, and instead of being grateful, you hate me. You're nothing but an ungrateful little wretch. The surrounding parents tried to persuade them. Sigh, what's done is done. The child can just repeat a year. There's no such thing as overnight hatred between mother and daughter. You shouldn't hit your child. At this age, kids are grown. They can understand if you talk to them properly. Child, no matter what, this is still your mom. Talk it out. Talk it out. Whether it was my parents or Aunt Lou, all of them frowned as they watched. My mom said tactfully, This Ms. Lin has become more and more unreliable over the years. She treats Willow with such care. How could she treat her own daughter like this? Aunt Lu rubbed her temples with a headache. The first time she hit her daughter, I warned her. Instead, she escalated and beat her even harder in secret. It's not that I didn't consider firing her, but she was truly devoted to Willow, doing everything herself. We tried several other nannies afterward, but none of them were as attentive as she was. She treated Willow like her own biological daughter, so I kept raising her salary. She finally let out a breath, as if relieved. Now that Willow is going to college, I finally have a reason to dismiss her. If Ms. Lin's behavior hadn't become so disturbing, she wouldn't have fired her. After living together for 20 years, they were almost like family. Perhaps because we were standing too close, Maria noticed us. She rushed at me like a madwoman. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, Willow would just be a naive little girl. She wouldn't be so outstanding, and my mom wouldn't keep comparing us. I found her unreasonable. Willow was outstanding because she was outstanding by nature. The daughter of Aunt Lu, how could she possibly be inferior? I looked at her coldly. Your misfortune comes from your mother. What does it have to do with me? This inability to tell right from wrong, on that point. You're exactly like your mother. Weren't they the same? All these years, she hadn't even realized that the child she raised by her side was her own biological daughter. Of course, I wasn't exactly a good person either. She didn't say it, and I pretended not to know. If she hadn't committed wrongdoing, there wouldn't have been retribution later. Everything was of their own making. Chapter 7. The day Willow's college acceptance letter arrived happened to be her 19th birthday, and also our engagement banquet. We celebrated at a hotel in the city center. Aunt Lu announced on the spot the list of assets Willow would inherit. My parents, afraid of falling behind, looked as if they were determined to give Willow every good thing they had accumulated over the years. Commercial properties, luxury cars, jewelry and designer bags, gold, stocks. The bride price list stretched on endlessly. The audience below burst into astonishment and congratulations. I looked at Willow, radiant and beautiful today, my eyes full of love. This was my fiancé. My fiancé whom I had raised since childhood. Thinking about the days I would spend with Willow in the future made joy bubble up in my heart. Even my business partners said they had never seen me smile so much. I replied proudly, this is my fiancé whom I've raised since childhood. From the age of 5 to 24, Willow had always been present in my life. She was my best friend and my lover. Surrounded by waves of blessings, I wrapped an arm around Willow and, together with her, looked at our parents on stage with tears glistening in their eyes. Then, disaster struck. Ms. Lin appeared out of nowhere. She rushed onto the stage and snatched the gift list from my mother's hands. I've finally waited for this day. Helen, I may be a nanny, but my daughter is inheriting your assets and even marrying into the Wang family. All these bride gifts are mine. You never expected it, did you? The two babies were switched back then. Why should your daughter be a pampered young lady while my daughter has to suffer through her whole life? Ms. Lin looked deranged as she shoved the frail girl behind her toward Aunt Lu. This is the real daughter of the Lu family. Your daughter didn't even take the college entrance exam. She can only go work in a factory. And my Willow has a bright future ahead of her. The entire hall erupted in chaos, especially my parents and Aunt Lu, clearly recalling how Ms. Lin had treated Maria all these years. Their faces turned deathly pale, panic impossible to conceal. Whispers spread everywhere. Appraising gazes fell on Willow and Maria, as if trying to tell them apart by their looks. I squeezed Willow Lu's fingers reassuringly and said softly, don't be afraid. You are Aunt Lu's daughter. I've already done a paternity test. Even with my reassurance, Willow was still somewhat at a loss. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end said nothing, quietly following behind me. Holding her hand, I walked calmly toward our parents. Chapter 8. Helen was so furious that her chest ached. She took a deep breath before speaking. Ms. Lin, this joke isn't funny. Willow is my daughter. She has nothing to do with you. The daughter she had raised with her own hands since childhood. How could she possibly not be hers? She had only this one daughter, no matter what. Helen could not accept it. Seeing the usually proud Helen on the verge of collapse, the smile on Ms. Lin's face grew even wider. She deliberately provoked her. Oh, aren't you, Helen, always so detached and aloof? Why can't you accept that the daughter you raised isn't yours? But it doesn't matter. In the end, they're all Martin's children anyway. Helen, if you hadn't insisted on divorcing Martin back then, how would my daughter ever have had the chance to become the young lady of the Lu family? This is all your fault. No matter how outstanding you are. So what? In the end, you just made a wedding dress for me. Ms. Lin's shamelessness made Helen's chest hurt even more. Ms. Lin, you've been with the Lu family for 20 years. I have never treated you unfairly. We have no grudges between us. Why would you hurt me like this? Ms. Lin's eyes were just as full of hatred. Martin and I were high school classmates. My family paid for his college tuition. He said he would marry me after graduation, yet after graduating, he married you instead. You were the one who intruded into our relationship. I endured humiliation for 20 years, waiting for this very moment. Helen, my daughter is also Martin's child. You didn't raise her for nothing. Otherwise, why do you think Martin so readily agreed to give all his assets to the child back then? Because in the end, everything would return to us, including your property. She shoved Maria toward Helen. Here, this is your daughter. Take your ungrateful daughter and leave. Don't ruin our Willow's engagement banquet. Chapter 9. I hurriedly raised my voice. MS. Lynn. No one ever imagined you would be this vicious back then, but I saw it. So I switched Willow back. The child you took away was your biological daughter. Willow has nothing to do with you. The joy on MS. Lynn's face froze instantly, replaced by shock and dawning relief on Aunt Lou's face. MS. Lynn screamed in denial. Impossible. How could Maria be my daughter? My daughter is Willow. I looked at her calmly. I've done a DNA test. Willow is Aunt Lou's daughter, and Maria is indeed your biological daughter. MS. Lynn. From beginning to end, your daughter has always been by your side. What I hadn't expected was that the one who couldn't accept this truth the most wasn't MS. Lynn, but Maria. Instead of directing her anger at her mother, she lashed out at me. It's all your fault. George, why are you so cruel? If you saw my mom switching the babies back then, why didn't you say anything? Why did you switch them back? Her voice broke as tears streamed down her face. George, you're the person I hate the most. You only needed to say one sentence, and my fate would have been completely different. Why are you so cold-hearted? Looking at the girl collapsing in front of me, all I felt was relief. Thankfully. Why should I have said anything? If your mother hadn't harbored selfish intentions, none of this would have happened. And what if they had tried to hurt Willow? Maria burst into bitter laughter, filled with mockery. She has everything. Why does Willow even have to take away the tiny bit of maternal love I had? Haha. I always thought I wasn't good enough. Turns out everything was wrong from the very beginning. MS. Lynn finally snapped back to reality. There was no remorse in her eyes, only rage as she clawed at Martin. Didn't you say it was foolproof? When Helen gave birth, didn't you deliberately lure everyone away? How could a child still switch our daughter back? Martin fought back furiously. You idiot. Wasn't it because you were stupid? You couldn't even recognize your own daughter. The scene descended into chaos. In the end, Martin's face was covered in scratches. MS. Lynn cried and laughed hysterically, showing kindness toward Maria for the first time. Maria, I did all this for you. Maria's face was empty, devoid of any vitality a girl her age should have had. For me? Haha. You ruined my entire life, and you say it was for me. You did it for yourself. I won't forgive you, and I won't come back. Perfect timing. You never wanted me to go to college anyway. I'll just go work in another city. MS. Lynn clutched her tightly, refusing to let go. Mom did everything for you. Wrong. Everything was wrong. She had never imagined that the child she raised by her side was her own biological daughter. I glanced at my shaken but unharmed parents and Aunt Lou, then at MS. Lynn and Martin still fighting each other, and gestured for security to escort the three of them out. Raising my glass to the room, I said, apologies for disturbing everyone's evening. Let's continue. My engagement banquet with Willow was also a battlefield of prestige and profit between two companies. Order was restored, as if the chaos from before had never existed. But everyone knew, the Lou family's retaliation had only just begun. Chapter 10. On the night the banquet ended, Aunt Lou launched a ruthless counterattack against Martin's company, snatching his business with a fight-to-the-death ferocity. Before long, I heard the news that Martin had gone bankrupt. As for MS. Lynn, under the overwhelming shock, she completely lost her sanity. She spent her days muttering that her daughter was a wealthy young lady, and was mercilessly sent to a psychiatric hospital by Maria herself. When I heard this, I couldn't help but pull Willow tightly into my arms. She looked at me in confusion. George, what's wrong? I shook my head. Nothing. I'm just very glad. Glad that I didn't run away from my mistake back then. Glad that the one who grew up by our side was always you. Mistakes can eventually be corrected, but harm can never be erased. If, back then, I had seen Maria's clean clothes and chosen to go along with the lie, I would probably have regretted it for the rest of my life. If MS. Lynn hadn't resorted to crooked schemes and had simply raised her daughter properly, her later years would not have fallen into such ruin. In life, all one can truly ask for is a clear conscience.